everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for week 16 of budget crafting. And I was requested to show how to make paper beads. And as I was going through my beads, I thought, I think I'm going to do just a little bit of a series. Maybe we'll have 2 or 3 weeks of this in the budget crafting series, but because there's so many different types and so many different things that you can do, I can't squeeze it all into one video. So today we are going to do the bases, and then you can work throughout the week on making a bunch of bases, and then next week we'll do some decorating. But I just wanted to show you, like different types of beads that you can make. So like these beads are made with shredded paper, when you put it through a paper shredder, and so it's very thin. But then this one is domed, and so it goes in on the bottom and pops out on the top. And then this has a napkin on it. This one is just flat, and this one is painted by the looks of it with nail polish. And then you do the same thing, and if you squish them, you can kind of make the eye shape. Or if you squish them 2 ways, you can make them look square. And you can make small round ones. You can make big round ones. You can make them any size that you want them. You can do the domes in the large sizes. You can also dome the small ones if you want to. And so, I love making these. And if you have a paper shredder, it's a good way to use up the shreds of paper. So then we have flat beads, cardboard beads, and these have a hole through the center, or in the case of the flower here, because it was a 5-petal flower, there was really not a good way to go through the middle. I could go across 2 beads, 2 petals with 3 on the other side, or I could go through the middle and through the middle of a petal, which I didn't really like that. So what I did with this one was I just went through and put the hole at the top of, or at the bottom of one of the petals. And so, that works well that way. You can do butterflies, and these are all just punched from plain old cardboard. You can do ovals. This one has a hole going this way, and this one has a hole going this way. So you can choose how you want to do that. And, I have a heart here, but these are very easy to do and really fun to decorate. So, and then this whole pile here, this was all done with a page out of a magazine and nothing else. So, and you get some really, you look at the magazine and think, ooh, this is a really pretty picture. I want to make beads out of it. It doesn't look anything like the picture. Even sometimes in the coloring, it really doesn't look like the picture. But it really makes some really cool beads, especially the ones that are cut into triangles. If you do a straight one like this, you're going to get whatever color is at the end of that page, and I'll show you how that all works. So these are all paper beads, and this one is that one's also out of a magazine by the looks of it. This one is marker. This one is made out of painty paper. This one is made out of a blueprint. This one already has napkin wrapped around it, and this was made with orange marker, and this was made with painty paper. So, and then there's different ways you can decorate those up to even make them look nicer. And then I thought maybe, not sure, at the end of the series, maybe we will do some wired beads, just some wire wrapping of beads to make nice long beads, and, or maybe some boho beads, or this is one of our paper beads, the type that's cut with the triangle, and then it's just got some string wrapped around it, and then clear nail polish and a few little beads on there. So I like the boho beads. I do have to say this, this one is a bead wrapped bead, so it's got beads wrapped around the bead. And if you're going to ask me what I do with these, to tell you the honest to goodness truth, nothing. I really don't know what to do with these. If I had a boho journal, I would hang them on the spine, maybe 1 or maybe 2. But I haven't done a boho journal, and I don't really know what to do with the longness of how long they are. But I love making them. They're just fun to make. It's just something that's pretty. What I really do with them is I just hang them around. you know, just kind of as decoration. And these all have a loop at the top and the bottom, so they can be hooked to something, and then you can put a charm on the bottom. This one already has a bead put on the bottom, so it only has a loop at the top. But so these are the different types of beads that you can make. And I did want to show you one thing as I was going through. I actually have these stuck in a pot as decoration. This is a way not to make your beads. When you make your beads on a wooden skewer, do not put the clear nail polish on them and then leave them on the skewer to dry, because they won't come off. These beads are all glued. I made all these beads. I thought, oh, they're so pretty, and they really are. These beads were colored black, and then, I don't know if you can really see it, these ones were brown with black tips, and then I used a gold, just a gold marker to go ahead and just put a little design on there. Nothing specific or whatever, just, and I really love the looks of those, and I really hope you can see them, but they are, I don't see them that well in the camera, but they're really beautiful. But I wound up having to remake these because they won't come off. And like I said, I have them stuck in a pot like this, and they really look pretty there, but it was a lot of work that I did to just glue them to a skewer. So remember not to clear coat them, and once you've got them made, if you're making them on a skewer, don't leave them on there. Pull them off, and I will show you how to dry them, or how I dry them. So this is what we're going to do for the next few weeks. We're going to play around with beads, and I'm just going to, today, we're just going to kind of go through and make some bases for our beads. And I'm going to show you a few ways. If all you have is a toothpick, you can wrap a bead around a toothpick. Now, the one thing that I don't care for about the toothpicks is they're really, really skinny. But then again, I use a very skinny bead roller quite often. As a matter of fact, I think that's what I pulled out today, was my skinny one. So, I don't know, maybe it's just that they're so tiny. But all you need to do is cut a strip of paper. And first, let's go through cutting the paper and how to do that. I'm also going to tell you that some beads look perfect and come out with the point right in the middle. But, you know, if they come out a little bit different, they really look okay. So don't worry about, oh, no, it's not perfect. But if you want to, the easiest way to start is to mark your paper. Now, if you have a cutter, you can just use the cutter, or you can cut them with scissors, but you want to kind of mark them first. If you have a cutter, you can just have the marks that you can line up. You don't have to draw the line. If you're using scissors, draw the line. But what I've done here is I've taken a piece of paper, and this paper is marked every inch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way across. There's only a ½ inch left at the end. Then you're going to go to the bottom, and you are going to move it over by a ½ inch, and you're going to mark 1, 2, 3. Now, why did we move it a ½ inch? Because this is 1 inch wide. We did 1 inch wide up here. So what we want to do is the middle of that inch is a ½ inch. So we want to make sure that at the bottom, we're going to be at the middle so that we actually have a correct triangle. Don't know what they call them. I'm not even going to try and guess. So we want to move over a ½ inch. So what I do is I take my ruler and I start at 1/2 inch. And then I mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Now, I'm marking it at the bottom. My temptation is always to flip it over and mark it that way. You don't want to do that because you're going from this side on the top. You don't want to go from the other side on the bottom. Now, this is 8½ inches. That would work. No, it wouldn't. Because if I did move it over a ½ inch to start with, then when I went to mark it at 1 inch, I'm going to mark it right here, which that mark is going to be exactly below the mark at the top. So I could, because this is 8½ inches, I could start here and mark it across. But you just want to make sure that you start on the same side. Start here, whatever your width is, go to the bottom, move over that far, and then just make your same mark. So move over a ½ inch because we're 1 inch in width. So we're going to move over half that amount, and we're going to mark it across the bottom. And then we are just going to draw our lines to make our triangles. Now this very first one is only a ½ inch wide here, and it has, the thing is that it has a straight edge instead of instead of being, it looks like a triangle, and yet it's not quite a triangle. And so rolling it the way that you roll beads, if you want your point to wind up in the center, rolling this, it's hard to do. It's not that you can't do it, but it doesn't look quite exactly the same because one of these edges is straight and the other edge has the angle to it. So you don't really have the correct triangle. So even though it's hard to see, this bottom edge is flat, the top edge is curved. But I like to use these, and I keep that bottom edge flat, and then only the top of my bead has that angle to it. So, and like I said, you can cut them with your paper cutter, with your paper trimmer. You can cut them by hand. I go through and I just mark them. You know, you can, if you want to, just take your scissors and just cut a triangle. It doesn't have to be perfect. So you don't have to have the lines if you don't want to do that. This is a great project to do while you're just sitting around. And it's small enough really that you could stick it in a little bit of a folder and take it with you wherever you go. You need this bead roller and some glue. So, you know, I do that a lot. I will take my bead roller with me when I go somewhere, and it just gives me something to do with my hands while I'm waiting. You know, like sometimes you have to wait forever at the doctor's office, or you're waiting for someone that you've taken to the doctor's office. And, you know, it just gives you something to do. You know, knitters like to take their knitting and crocheters take their crocheting, but I don't do anything like that. So, this gives me a paper project that's easy to take with me. And normally what I do is I just have a bunch of strips already cut, and I just have them in a little folder and my bead roller and some glue, and I'm good to go. You can even use stick glue. You don't have to use wet glue for this. So here we go. We've got a small one. Now, which one of these is the one with the straight edge? Let's look. If I line it up on the paper cutter, on the line, so this is my triangle, this is my one with the straight edge, and this one is also a triangle. So now you can do that with your regular paper. Do it with junk paper. I've got this one that I had done some samples for Market Monday, and so this is just very random, and I really don't see anything here that I'm necessarily going to use, but I take these types of papers and I cut them into triangles because you're not really going to see what's going on that piece of paper. Like here we have this is out of a magazine. And the thing is that it's, you know, really pretty blue, and then it's got the red mountains and the green grass, and you think that's really a pretty piece of paper, and it really is. But when we roll it, it's not going to look a whole lot like that at all. And sometimes you'll find, I have to figure out what I did with my bead roller. I had it here just a little bit ago. There it is. Okay, so, but you're just going to take your paper, stick it in your bead roller. I like to make it very right at the edge. I don't like to have the extra going. You know, like you can, if you want to, if you have a hard time catching it at the very edge, you can start down a little ways and then, you know, like just kind of fold that over and then roll. But, you know, to me, I have a hard time with that. So I start right at the edge, and if there's a little bit sticking out or something, it doesn't matter, but I just do it wherever it's easiest for me. Because this is cut in a triangle, what I want to do is I want to kind of hold my paper and make sure that I'm just kind of keeping my paper centered, so that it, you know, so that it comes out in the shape that you're looking for. Now you can always, I don't do any gluing until I get to the end. So you can always adjust it. If you have not glued it, you can adjust it at the end and, you know, kind of move it around a little bit to shape it the way that you want it. If you find out that it's off and you don't like how it is. But I just kind of, and this is how I do it sometimes. I don't even always do it the same way. So there is no right or wrong way. If you have people showing you how to use a bead roller and they tell you have to hold like this, you have to turn it like that, you don't. You do whatever is comfortable for you. And with me, it's whatever's comfortable for me at the time. So I get to the end And then put just a little bit of glue on that tip, which actually that's more than a little bit of glue. And what's going to happen is it's going to squish out. And then I finish rolling it, and the glue squishes out. And then all I do, if I like my shape and I don't want to move it, I am just going to take that glue and roll that bead in that glue. That helps seal it. It helps glue it together. And it gives you something to do with the extra glue. Alrighty, and then what I do is I slide it off of my bead roller and I put it on a paper clip. I just open up some paper clips, any kind. Really, the silver ones work the best, just the plain old silver metal ones, because there's nothing really for the paper to stick to. I slide it off, oops, slide it off your bead roller and stick it on here. Because you want it to be able to dry, you don't want to set it down to dry. But this wound up being a nicely shaped bead. Now, it could have got off and I could have slid it a little bit back and forth before I glued it, but I liked the shape of it. I'm not real picky. And then what you want to do is you want someplace to hang this. So I'm going to show you how to make a bead box really quick, a bead drying box, which is get a box. Just have one side open and 3 sides not. Take a wooden skewer, stick it through one side, stick it through the other side, and there you go. That's your bead drying box. This one's got 2. You know, if this was wider, you could have 3. You don't want it to be too big. Number 1, they're bulky, they get in your way. Number 2, you know, as you're putting them on, now I could put this one on like this from the top. I don't know why. I always tend to kind of want to go underneath for some reason. But, you know, you got to have enough space between them so they're not touching each other, so they don't glue themselves together. This glue is not that sticky, but when you get to doing your nail polish and that type of thing, you want to be able to just take it and put it right on here without having to touch it and without having it touch your other beads. So make sure that you leave a bit of space. And on this one, it has, that's about 1 3/4 inches between the 2 skewers. And then because this is a corrugated box, I take just plain old skewers and I just stick them down in the corrugation. Then when things are dry, I can take them off of there and then just stack them up on these so I can see what I have or just a place to put them at the time. So that is how you can make your own bead drying box. Super simple. Poke a hole with a skewer. You need an old box and some skewers and some paper clips and you're all set. So let's look at the one that was not straight, or the one that was not a triangle, that had a straight edge. Just need to, okay, that one's the triangle. Make sure this really is the straight edge. Line it up at the bottom. Okay, that's the one with the straight edge. Okay, so this is my straight edge right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, again, put it on my bead roller. Whoops. And I will show you how to make a bead roller too, probably today. Alrighty, so I'm just going to put it on there and I'm just going to start rolling. For this one, because that's a straight line right there, I'm just going to let that straight line up all the way through the whole thing. I'm not going to try and push it to the middle. I'm just going to let it line up across the bottom. Now, without any color on this, it's hard to see. I should have done some colors, but I didn't think about it. But what's going to happen is you're going to have a little straight bead, kind of like a perler bead at the bottom, with a little beaded point sticking out from it. Now, it's starting to move up a little bit because of my point, so the bottom is not totally flat. If I want the bottom totally flat, I can just push the bead down there to make it totally flat. If I don't care that it's a little rounded at the bottom, like at the top, then I just leave it. But now that I'm here at the bottom, just going to take some glue. Roll it on there where I want it, which is pretty much anywhere. And then I just kind of roll the rest of that glue off my finger to kind of seal it up. And there we go. Now we have Slide that bead off. And now we have this shape bead. So basically what it is it is a half of, and of course I don't have any of these that are plain. It's a half one of these. This one's got a point on each end. This one only has a point at one end, and it's flat on the bottom. And I really like these beads too. I like to take them, and you know, they look really good lined up, one right after the other with, you know, you go from the thick to the thin, then another one, thick to thin, you know, and just go that way, or put them kind of butterfly shaped, you know, the two thin parts together. However, you know, there's so many different things that you can do with your own beads, and I personally don't care if they're totally perfect. It really doesn't matter. Now I want to show you how to color a bead, because a lot of people think, okay, I want a red bead. And so let's do orange and green. I'm going to show you. What you do is you don't have to color the whole thing. You don't see any of this on either side. The only part you see is a little bit here inside the hole. If you don't color this, the inside of your hole will be white. But if you just take whatever color you want your bead to be and color, you know, the last inch maybe, now the inside of your bead's going to be orange. So, and then you just, what you need to do is when you roll the beads, really what you see the most is the edge of the paper, especially if it's a straight bead like this one. The only thing you see is the edge of the paper. You don't see anything else. If it is one of the shaped beads, you are going to see a little bit. So you just take your marker. You want to make sure that you get the edge of the paper. And I'm going to do this half green and half orange. So I'm going to start in the middle. You just take your marker and just make sure that you go to the edge of the paper, so you're getting the edge of your white paper, and then just a little bit on top, and just go like that. And then if it's the shaped bead, you might want to put it over just a little bit. And usually how I do it is I do the edge, and then I just kind of come back up and do the side. So because I want to make sure that that edge is colored. And even if you color this way, the whole thing, make sure you get that white edge, because you'd be surprised how much it shows up. And so then the rest of it, I just want green. So I'm just going to do the edge green. Maybe put just a little bit of color on there. Now, the one thing you want to remember is, and especially with a Sharpie, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but because it kind of soaks through. But if this is going to be the inside of my bead, I've colored it here. If this is the inside of my bead, this whole side is the inside of my bead. So I want to make sure that the point I color on the opposite side. So one side you color, the inside you color on one side, the outside you color on the other. And technically, I've got the edge, but I really should have put a little bit of green on this side, because this is the side that's going, as I roll it, this is the side that's going to show, because the rest of it is going to be in the center of my bead. So, and you may think, well, that doesn't save much time, but to color the whole thing, and yes, especially with the points and stuff, when you get down to the point, you're coloring the whole thing anyways. But when you're doing a whole bunch of them, it really saves some time. So I am going to take my bead roller, and I'm going to put it on here, and I'm going to roll it. And again, now see how we've got the white right here, but we colored it on the other side because we want the inside of our bead to be orange. And so now I'm just going to try and hold it. Now I'm off. I'm really got a lot of angle here and not much angle here. So I'm going to kind of scooch it over a little bit. You just kind of want to make sure that you keep it centered. And like I said, it really doesn't matter if it's perfect. And you really don't need to worry about whether it's perfect. We're just going to keep rolling. And with these shaped beads, if you want it to be like lots of colors, you can color, you know, just different sections. Get that on there. However many different sections you color, that's how many colors will be on your bead. Now, the more sections you color, the smaller amount of rolls you'll have for that color. But that is the easiest way to color your paper bead if you want to color it ahead of time. Now, you can paint them afterwards. A lot of times I do this, and then I decide if I want to paint it, I can always paint it later. But this bead is ready to go. Well, usually I put a clear coat on them when I use them, because this is just tacky glue. So if it gets wet, it could get sticky. So I usually will put a clear coat of like fingernail polish on it, or I'll spray it with a clear coat, hang a bunch of them on a string, and hang it outside and spray it with a clear coat. But there we go. So now we have our bead. I'm going to stick it. And this is what it looks like on the inside. You probably can't see really well, but it is orange now on the inside. And that really it makes a difference. Because you saw as we were rolling it how much of the white was showing as we were rolling it. Well, you would see that white on the inside of that bead. So that's paper beads. And that is magazine beads. And let's look at the flat beads. Like this. And you can do, this one has the most where you can really see what I've done. And this is only just one layer of cardboard on each side. This one is 2 layers of cardboard on each side. So, it just depends on how thick you want your bead to be. And the more, I like the 2 layers. And, well, technically this is 1 layer on each side where the hole is, and then 2 layers in the middle. And I'll show you how we do that. But okay, so this is how we're going to do it. If you don't want this line here, which this one I did want the line, then what you're going to do is we're going to cut the hole for the center when we make it. And let's see, I've got some cardboard here. The biggest thing is you can use any punch you have. This is just a piece of cardboard out of a notebook. And, you can use this one. I can see the yellow inside, so that means this was like a cereal box or a cracker box or something like that. If you're using like a cereal box or a cracker box or something, you should take a little bit of sandpaper and sand that color. You don't have to get it off. Just sand it so that the glue will stick, because your glue doesn't like to stick to the shiny stuff. So just rough it up a little bit, sand it a little bit. That will take some of that shiny off and give the glue places to grab and hold it together. You want any kind of a punch, and if you don't have a punch, you can just cut out the same shape, cut out squares or whatever, and use them as a square, use them as a diamond. But if you're using a punch, you want one that is solid. So, because all the laciness, number 1, is hard to line up, and number 2, doesn't give you a very solid hole, depending on where all that lacy parts are. All right, so I'm just going to cut, 1 for the top, and I'm going to set this down. 1 for the bottom. Oh, I didn't quite get that one all the way on there. And 2 for the middle. You need 4, unless you want to do it thinner and you want to press it around, which actually a butterfly might not be bad to press around, because that would make the body stick out. Let's do 2 more. We'll do 1. I'll show you how to do a center hole, and I'll show you how to do it there's 2 ways to do it. I'll show you how to do it both ways with the same thing. Right, then what you need is a piece of wire. If you don't have a piece of wire, an completely opened up paper clip works just fine. But you just need a piece of wire. And this is just wire from the Dollar Tree. This is what's going to give our hole a spot to dry. And so there's nothing special about it. It doesn't have to be any special kind of wire. Alrighty. So then we're just going to take our wire. And so for the first one, where we have the extra thickness and the hole right in the center, I'm going to take 2 butterflies and stick them together. And I wouldn't do this with stick glue. You can. I don't know how well it you know, I don't know, it's a bead. I don't know how well it will last. And then you want to spread that out so that it's everywhere. You don't want places along your edges that don't have glue, because then they won't seal together and you may see them a whole lot easier. So 2 pieces, glue them together, and then set them aside for a few minutes. I usually go through and I make a whole bunch, and I just like glue all of my double pieces together. And if you want, you could do 4 pieces, however thick you want your bead to be. Now you're going to have to cut this, so you want to be careful as to how thick you make it. You know, let's do 3 pieces. See how easy that is to cut. I usually do 2, so I'm not really sure how easy it will be to cut 3, but we'll try it. Since I said that you could do that, we better make sure it works before you do a whole bunch of them. And if you're going to do 3 layers or 4 layers or whatever, you may want to just glue 3 layers together and let it sit and dry. And you do want, it doesn't have to be completely dry, but you do really want it to dry for a bit. Because when you cut it, if your glue is still really wet, they'll slide, they'll move. So give it a really good press, really hold it together, and then let it dry. And like I said, I do a whole bunch of these all at once. Then I go through and cut them and put them together with the rest of it. Okay, so now we're going to need 1 more butterfly. So I'm going to do that right now, so that later on I'm not walking around going, what did I do with that? Okay. Alrighty, so this one is drying, and we have 2 butterflies to go with it, so I'm just going to put those up there. Now, if you want to do it like this, which might be really cute with the butterfly, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of bend next to the wings a little bit on each side, just to kind of give me an area where I know where I'm going. Because we're going to have to bend this, so we're just kind of loosening it up before we try and wrap it around the wire. And then all we're going to do is put the wire in the middle. What the wire is going to do is keep your hole. So put some wire in there, put some glue on there, and I'm going to put the wire down for now because I really don't have to have it there right this second. I'm just going to go. I'm not going to put glue in the center. I'm not going to worry a whole lot about it if I get some on there, because I'm using wire which should not stick to this glue. If you're using some kind of a permanent glue that will stick to wire, then you would want to be very careful not to get that glue where the wire is going to be. Or if you're using a skewer to try and hold your hole open, you definitely would not want to get any glue in the middle. I don't think I would use a skewer for these holes because it could very easily get glued right to your cardboard. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get my wings lined up and get them pressed together. Then I'm going to take my wire, kind of make sure it's in the middle. I have an awful lot of wire here. I'm going to cut some of this wire off. Have a piece that's easy to work with, and then you can have a longer piece that you can just kind of store them on once you get them put together. So we're going to take the wire and put it in the middle, and then we're going to just kind of go on each side of that wire and just press down. Kind of keep that wire where you want it. And just press it down there, then turn it over and do the same thing. Making sure that you've got the wire in the middle. Now the cool thing about this, which I had not thought about until just now when I was showing you, is I like how this gives the butterfly a body. I've always done the butterflies with the cut holes. And probably because when I do them, I'll do like all butterflies, all circles, all ovals, whatever. I don't do them together like this, so I never really saw this one with that one while I was making it. And I never put the two together, so I like how that has given my butterfly a body. So I'm going to set that aside and let it dry for a bit. And then I'll push my little antennas together. And if they don't glue together now, I'll go back in later and glue them together. And then once they're dry, you can just slide them off the wire. And I store them on my wire. Do I have one here? So I just store them on a wire, because then I've kind of got them all in one place. Oops, they're coming off. I usually put a little loop at the end of the wire too, but I had to cut it off to get these beads off to show you. And then these are great, all different, decorated all different ways. So there we go. So now we have a butterfly that's like that. And then we've got our thicker butterfly. Now normally I would let it dry longer than this, but we're going to just go in, and what we're going to do is we're going to just cut off the body on one side, cut off the body on the other side. And then what that does is that will give us, we're going to glue this on here. Let's just do that. Put some glue on here. And this butterfly is symmetrical, I think is what you say. This butterfly is exactly the same on both sides. If you have something that is not the same on both sides, you just need to make sure you keep track, like when you cut it apart, which side goes on which side. This one does not make any difference because it's the same shape all the way across. But just line that up. And if you don't get them lined up perfectly, when you're all done, you sand it with some sandpaper or a fingernail file, which is just sandpaper on a cardboard board. So we've got that one glued on there. And now we're going to glue this one on here. So we get a little bit of glue on here. And again, making sure that you do get it all over the whole thing so that it sticks nicely, because this is going to be a bead. So, you know, whether you put it on a dangle for a book or whether you actually make necklaces out of them or something, you know, they're going to get kind of beat around a little bit. So you want to make sure that you get it glued well. And then you can stick them under a heavy book. That really helps to make sure that they're nice and solid and flat. So see, now what we've done is, because we've cut the body out, we now have a hole right down the middle. So we're going to put this one up, and the butterfly will have that hole in it. And if you don't want your butterfly to hang that way, just a minute, I'll show you. We can make it hang the other way too. Now, I wouldn't do the wire one the way that I'm going to show you in a second, because it would look funny. But there we go. Now we have a hole right there. Goes all the way through. And again, make sure you're lined up well. Put something heavy on it and just set them aside to dry. I just line them up on a piece of parchment, stick them in my atlas, and just let them sit there and dry. Okay, so a butterfly, if you want it to go across, I'm just gonna give you a quick, just show you really quick, and then I will I'll finish it so we can decorate it next week. Okay, so the 3 was not too bad to cut. That worked out pretty well. And it gave me a little bit of a bit, the more that you do, the bigger your hole is going to be. So, but I'm just going to do 2 for this one. And basically you're just no matter what you're doing, you just choose where it is that you want your hole to be, and that's where you cut. That's how I did those flowers. I decided that I wanted to just have the hole up at the top, so I cut off just that one petal. Where's the flower? Here's the flower. Oh, nope, this one I did this way. Did I do them all that way? No, these ones are cut. So this one, all I did was I cut off the petal right there, and then I cut it right here. And so there's, behind here, there's a hole right there. And so that's, you know, I just chose where I wanted to put the hole. We'll leave that one out with the other one. So, for this one then, and again, I would let it dry much longer than this, but I can decide, do I want my hole to be like right across the middle? It might do a lot of floppy that way, or do I maybe want my hole to be a little closer to the top? I'm thinking maybe a little closer to the top, just so that, you know, there would be a little more weight on the bottom. So I'm just going to kind of go up here. There's no right, there's no wrong. And then I'm just cutting off just a little strip of the cardboard. Now I have my two pieces to put on here. And normally I put it on the other piece, but I don't know why I put it on here. But it doesn't make a difference. Then I'm going to take this part and put it up here. And that's why it's easiest to use a piece that, or a punch where everything is symmetrical, because then you don't have to worry about, you know, lining it up. But if so, it's got two sides. Put it one way, put it the other way. It's not that big of a deal. And the reason I normally do put it on here instead of on there is because then I know that this whole thing is covered with glue. Whereas if I put it on the full part, if I don't cover it all the way with glue, I may have a spot that's not covered, that's not being held on. And so there we go. See, now we've got our ridge there. So now our hole will be going this way on this butterfly. And so that was pretty quick. Like I said, I don't normally cut them that quick. And it is a little bit better if you let them dry. But then again, they seem to be easier to cut if they're wet. Dry glue gets very hard. But I just don't want them to shift. So there we go. And the biggest thing is too, you want to kind of make sure that you wipe your glue off while it's wet. As far as like where it's sticking out the edges, because otherwise you'll have to file that off, and glue gets hard when it dries. So if I've got a spot there that I want to get that out of there, take a little piece of paper towel here, or even a little piece of paper. Anything will grab that glue, but just put that in there so that there's not all that wet glue sticking out. And there we go. So now we have this one with a hole right there. So, and then we'll really quickly do, oh, this is getting long. Okay, so let's just quickly do a few of these, or we'll just do one of the paper strips, because I do kind of want to show you how to make the domed ones so that you can make some of those. And I think that's everything that I have here. For the fabric beads and the boho beads, you can just make tube beads. Just like this, just a plain old tube, which is just a straight piece of paper. Well, this is actually a tube bead, but it's just a very small tube. Where's my roller? Okay. So you're just going to do this exactly the same way as you do the others. And just keep it lined up. And like I said, if it gets a little bit out of line, you can just kind of push it back together. Just kind of say, oh, I want you to be. And this kind of makes the size of a perler bead, like as the width of it. And so you're just going to go ahead and just turn it. And again, you know, like when you first start, you'll go slower, just, you know, just because, and then eventually you'll just kind of, you know, get the rhythm and Just keep on going. I'm going to put just a little bit. Now I could end it right there and have a really tiny bead. That's very cool. But I'm just going to add another piece. For the larger ones, I think I do like 6 or 7 pieces. I think I do 3 or 4 for the, what I call this is a small one. This is probably 6 or 7, and this is probably 3 or 4. And of course, you can do them any size you want to. I'm going to do a large one here because I want to do the dome, and it's easier to show you how to do that with a larger bead. So, but you're just going to make it whatever size you want it to be. So, and I'm really kind of getting in a hurry. It's getting a little bit off, so I want to press it back together. And then just put a little glue on here. Don't put your bottle upright. Leave it laying down or put it back in your glue holder. Okay, so I'm just going to, got a little bit sticking out, take another one and just stick it right on there. And that's the only place that this will have glue. Now, some people will say, oh, it's you got to glue your beads like all throughout, a little bit here, a little bit there. For these ones, if you want to make a dome out of it, you don't want to glue them. You have to glue that together. But you don't want to put glue throughout. So if you want to do it on your triangle beads or any other beads, you know, do it. But if you want to dome it, if you glue it together in different areas, you won't be able to push it into a dome shape. So we're just going to, I probably should have, oh, wait a minute, you know what? I think I actually do have a plain one here. Let me see. But we'll do this one. So this is, I think, what, 3 or 4? I always lose count. And if you want to make sure, you know, you can always just hold it up to the last one that you did that you like the size of to see if it's the same size, to make sure that they're exact. But we're going to end this one here because I do have a larger one. So this is 3 or 4, however many it was. You were probably counting, so you probably know. Alrighty, then you just slide it off. And now we have a bead that looks like that. Now, you want to make this into a square bead. Well, first I'll show you how to make it into an eye bead like this, kind of shaped, eye-shaped. So to do that, all you do is just pinch it like that. Just pinch each edge, and there you go. Now it's shaped like an eye. If you want it to be a square, you pinch it like that. Then you take those 2 points and pinch them right together so that you're kind of coming straight together that way, and then pinch it over here. See, now those points are kind of starting to show back up again, like that. And then that's kind of like a diamond. And then you just take it and straighten it back out like that. And then I just go ahead and I just kind of go around and push it like this until I'm happy that that's the square that I want. And now you have a square bead. So you can do lots with these. So they're really fun. And to dome them. So this one is like 6 or 7 or 8 pieces of paper, however much you want. And then all you do is when you're all done, I usually let it dry for a few minutes, you know, to make sure that it's holding on well. And then all you do is you just push up and just kind of hold the top, because you don't want to accidentally push the whole thing through. If you do, it'll come unwound. So kind of hold your top and just kind of push it up and kind of, you know, pull your sides down a little bit until you decide that looks about like the dome that I want. You're domed inside, outside, and so that is how you make a dome. And then with that one, you just want to take a little bit of glue. Once you've done that, and just put it on there, it will hold the ridges. It will help hold the shape of your dome. And then your clear coat will hold it even better. And you can put your glue on with a paintbrush if you want to. make sure that you keep a little bowl of water around so that you don't dry that glue on your paintbrush. Because a lot of glues, once they dry, you're not going to get them off. Some glues, if you soak it in water, it will come off. But so there we go. We've got our dome drying. And so we've got square ones. And we've got butterflies with a hole through the top, butterfly with a hole through the side. And we made some paper beads. I don't know. Oh, well, of course, they're hanging over here to dry. So, and they're dry now. It doesn't take long to dry. So we've got our flat-sided shape, our triangle shape, and an easy way to make them a colored bead without having to worry about it at the end. So these are just, you know, all the different types of, no, it's nowhere near all the different types of beads that you can make, because I'm sure you can come up with a lot. These are just some of the different types of beads that you can make all on your own. And with, you know, with these ways of making them, you know, you just adapt and make it however you want to. You know, these are paper rolled beads with fabric rolled around them. This is a paper rolled bead with fabric rolled around them, and I shredded the fabric and hand dyed it before I wrapped it. This is also hand dyed fabric, but it's got some little fringe on it. So, you know, so go ahead and over the next week, whichever types you like, make some flat beads, make some domed beads. And the thing is, if you don't have a paper shredder, you can just use your guillotine cutter, your rotor cutter, or even a pair of scissors and just cut a bunch of strips to make these flat type beads. And these are great. I love the way that this one's got napkin on it. So for next week, have some beads, have some tube beads, have some of the regular shaped beads that you see all the time. Have some where this one again was flat on one side, so that's why it's got like a cone shape. This one too, flat on one side, and so that's cone shaped. See, it only comes to a point on one end. So make some just plain old tubes. Plain old tubes are just a straight piece of paper. And so let's do this up for next week. This one right here, I don't know if you can see that it's inside, it's colored. I colored this one green on the end, purple at the other end, and then I just did the lines a third of the way green, a third of the way orange, and a third of the way purple. And so I now have a striped bead on the inside. So you see that more if you do just two colors, or if you have a longer piece of paper. It makes a wider bead, which lets you see those colors better. So I really do appreciate you stopping by. Thank you very much. That's why I think this is going to have to be, because we're almost an hour now, and that's why I think this is going to have to be a few videos to get through the different types. Thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate you, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.